Welcome to NX for Manufacturing Tech Tips. And today's tech tip is getting started with NX CAM customization. Demonstration will last about 20 minutes, and then we'll stay on the line and open up the chat window for Q&A. With that, I'll turn it over to Mark Reef. Welcome, Mark. Let's get started.
Oh, thank you, Derek. Can you hear me okay?
You sound great.
Oh, good. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I see a lot of familiar names there who could probably do this presentation. I see a lot of new people also, so that's really good to see. As Derek said, I'm a product manager in this area. I'm a long-time user, and I've done a lot of work with customization and the user interface and things like that. That's what I look like. If you see that little avatar on the left, if you see me lurking in one of these support forums, that's probably the picture that you'll see. As Derek mentioned, this is really just the first of a series on customization. And what we're going to cover today is how to set up a sandbox or a safe place where you can try customization and experiment. And we'll get into why that is so important before you start customizing. Let's take a minute and talk about why we want to customize. There's a general expectation that when people buy a CAM system or any kind of expensive software package, that out of the box it's exactly the way they want it. Now the reality is, if everybody wanted the same thing, I would be happy to do that. But you all want something different. Every user needs something different, and we by nature are a very broad-based system. We are not a focused solution on one particular area of CAM. We do it all. So for that reason, customization is really almost a necessity if you want to optimize the system for your specific users. We know we have a great system, but everybody is wanting something different. One of the basic things is that you probably don't need everything in NX CAM. If you don't do wire EDM, there's no reason for you to be looking at those things on your screen. So we can optimize by just removing things that aren't needed by you or your users. We tend to have a lot of options, a lot of ways to do things. So our functionality is outstanding. So that's really good if you want to do everything. It's not the best for usability because it provides a lot of choices to pick from. And sometimes we need to help our users, especially the new users, make the right choice the first time just by reducing the number of options they have. We want to make the system more understandable to your users. Perhaps what we call stock, you call blank, and there's other things like that. There's terminology that is not necessarily industry standard, or you have special terminology in your company, and you want to communicate with your users in terms they already know on their job. So you can customize to make the system more easily understandable to your users without having to constantly look up, what something means. We can do things like just set default values. I see people that create operations and change the same 10 parameters every time, and it just I don't understand that, because very easily they could just set that once in the master for that operation and not have to do it again. And then there's some things we can do just with the user interface. Some people like larger icons, smaller icons. Some people want things on the left or the right. These are all things that are part of customization to make it more comfortable for your users. And reducing errors. The more we can make this comfortable for the user, the fewer choices we can give them, the more understandable it is, the less chance we have of making mistakes from day to day. So customization, if you really want to go to the next level with NX and be more productive, is really a tool you can use to get this powerful system into the hands of your new users and easier to bring them up to speed. Now, there's a lot of things we can customize in the system. There's a normal UI customization, which I expect every user does. Adding icons, moving toolbars around, saving a role once you like it, things like that. The next two are really what we're going to focus on in this series, and that's about our templates in CAM. We have two types of templates. We have a setup template, and this determines when you first start brand new CAM setup, what's there. What's your starting point? Are there preloaded tools or not? Are there operations already there or not? How many geometry groups? How many MCSs do you have? All these kind of things for your starting point are part of the setup template. Now, the object template is everything you add after you start. So you're going to be creating tools or operations or whatever All this is part of the object template. So together, you can define, what your user starts with and what they can do, what they can add to the setup. So this is really going to be the main focus of this in the next few sessions in the series. Some other things we can customize, which we may get into in later tech tips, depending on demand. We have libraries for tools, tool holders, machining data, machine tools, even for setups. There's a whole system of rules and machining knowledge, which is for feature-based machining, which is a whole other way to optimize. If you do a lot of parts that have the same kind of features over and over, we have wizards we can make. That's a way to lead the user really single file through a step-by-step process where you need to gather several things in a row before you can do your job. That's what a wizard's really good for, gathering that kind of input. And then we have journals and API programs. These are really language-based customization. Journals is just a basic, it's like a record a macro, recording and playing back a macro. And if you use Microsoft products, it's VB or whatever language you choose. Very simple to customize. And API programs are much more elaborate for professional programmers. You can do work in that. So lots of options. I think templates are the best place to start for the CAM user. Some of the reasons we want to start there is that they're fairly easy to develop. There is no language. You're basically interactively setting things up just the way you would do if you were programming a part, and then you're saving those to be reused later. So you don't really have to write any code. You just have to know how to do it once, which you should already know how to do that. They're very easy to share. They're just part files. So it's not that tough to do something and then pass it out to the people in your group or adopt it as a standard within your company or your work area. You can reuse anything. You can make a template for a tool, or an operation, or for a complete process from start to finish. And that's what we'll do on the second session. So by taking a little bit of time to set up some custom templates, you can streamline things because you can enforce some processes. You can set fewer parameters because you're going to set good defaults. The users are not going to have to change things, the same thing every time they use it. You can provide consistent defaults, like tolerances and stock and things like that are good. You can adopt into your company standards into the templates. And through using these process templates, you can enforce consistent machining practices. So everybody roughs with the same stock, followed by finishing with the same amount of step over, whatever you want to do. So it gives you a pretty good way to do this, all without doing a whole lot of code. So really a good CAM programmer can go in and do templates. So this is what I think is why this is a really good place to start. As far as bang for the buck goes, it's a really good investment. So before we start customizing, we need to mention there are several ways to customize NX. And I'm going to mention a few of them. One is you can just install it and then start changing the out-of-the-box installation. That's not recommended for a lot of reasons. You can set up environment variables in the control panel. That's also has some downfalls. You can use batch files or you can use scripts. These are actually really well. There's a NX custom program out there. There's several ways to do this. Fairly elaborate. And if you're going to manage customization for an entire company, I think you should look into these. But for an everyday user, I think the easiest way is to just use a folder and a shortcut. And that's the method I'm going to show today, is how to just, with a folder and a shortcut, we can create a customized environment. And any user can do this without any system privileges, and it's also very easy to make several of them. You want one for NX8, one for NX85, one for the mold guys, one for the machinery guys, one to just test something at lunch. All of this is available fairly simply. So this is the way we're going to show today, is how to set up this environment for you to customize your work, or to test your customization in. Why do you want to do this? Well, I want you to have a safe place to experiment. You should be able to try new things without a risk to the production environment. You want to see what happens if I set up these 5 operations and generate them all at once, or what happens if I change the default tool diameter. What effect will that have on other things? So there's a lot of things you want to try out before you distribute them. Those of you that do post-processing or used to this way of working, you want to test it in your own environment first before you roll it out. You really want to do that for all your customization. You also don't want to mess up the out-of-the-box installation. And the reason is, if you run into a problem and you call support, the first thing they're going to say is, if it works for me and it doesn't work for you, let's see what happens if we go back to a standard environment, and you can start diagnosing it. So you always need something to roll back to check what we delivered versus what you've customized. Also, when the next upgrade comes out, you load NX9 or NX10, you don't want to lose your customizations. You don't want us to overwrite them. So you want to make sure your stuff is preserved as you go through maintenance releases or maintenance packs or version upgrades. So a lot of good reasons to set up a local environment. And as you're going to see, it's really not that difficult to do. That's really what today's demo is about, is to establish this environment and show you how we've made a parallel way to run NX. Don't worry about the details here. Those that are in can get a copy of this later. But really, I'm going to create a folder, a sandbox, which is a place to play. And I'm going to copy some of our out-of-the-box files in there. And then I'm going to set up my environment to use those files instead of the ones that came out of the box. And then we're going to run NX. And that's really the total part of the demo. I'm going to do this the hard way. I'm going to do a little bit of typing because I want you to see how it works. It's not just we're not just going to play an AVI for you. I'm actually going to do it. So with a little success here, I should be able to share my screen. There we go. So hopefully everybody now sees my blank screen. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a folder to play in. So I'm going to go into this folder, my home folder, users brief, and I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this folder demo. And this is where we're going to do all of our work today. So now what I need to do is copy in some of the out-of-the-box files that I want to mess with. So I need to find out where NX is installed. So if you don't know where it is in your system, you can always find it out by running NX and look into the log file. So I'm going to run NX 8.5. And this is standard out of the box. And I'm just going to say help NX log file. Blow this up a little bit. And as you scroll down, you can see we're looking for UGII base dir. This tells me where the installation is for NX. So this is the folder that I need to go to find my out-of-the-box file. So I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to open up a new window here. I'm going to go to that home folder here. And I'm going to look in mock, which is where the machining files are stored. And I'm going to grab this resource folder, and I'm going to copy this folder over to my demo area. Now, it's actually possible to copy just parts of this and customize parts of it, but it's much simpler to just take the whole bunch at once. If you take other folders in here, you have to be very careful because some of the things are platform specific. For example, you wouldn't want to run a Unix executable on a Windows system, right? So we have to be a little bit careful about that. Now that I've got this over here, I'm going to change the protection on it because out-of-the-box install is always set up read-only. So I'm going to go to Properties, and I'm going to turn off the read-only attribute. And I want this on everything in there. You saw when I copied there's 1,800 files here, so there's quite a bit there. And now those are all unprotected. The next thing I want to do is create a couple folders that we're going to need later on when we start to do custom bitmaps or toolbars and menus. So I'm going to just create those right now while I'm here. We need a folder called User Tools. And in that User Tools folder, I'm going to create two other folders. One called Bitmaps and one called Startup. I guess I have a question for Derek. Is the lag okay on the or is the response okay on the meeting? I hope that when I'm talking. Okay. Yeah, I hope what I'm talking about matches what you're seeing on the screen, and that I'm not getting ahead of it. Okay, so now we've got those folders ready. The other thing I need to do is I need to get an environment file. So I'm going to go back to my UG base dir here, and I'm going to go into the UGII folder, and I'm looking for the UGII-env.dat file. And this is a file that you use to override variables for the system. And in this file, we put things that we want to change. Anything we don't change uses the out-of-the-box installation. So I'm going to just take a copy of this, put it right over in this folder. Okay, and I'm going to edit that because I want to point to these folders that I've created. I want to make sure that when I run NX, these folders are used instead of the out-of-the-box folders. So let's edit this on your favorite text editor. And if you look in here, there's a place that says override any variables here. You can see there's already, Volumill already put some stuff in there during that install. But what happens is anything I change here is going to be overridden, and at the very end, at the bottom, it brings in the system defaults. So I don't want this really to be a typing demo, so I do have the variables I wanted to find in another folder here. Just so I don't make any typos. So these, I'm going to just take these lines of text here. I'm going to copy them into my folder. And what's important here is that this resource dir, I have changed CAM resource dir to go to the folder that I created. Remember when I copied resource over? That's the folder that I copied over. And the bitmaps are going to go to the folders that I created, this user tools bitmaps folder. So that's really the only two things I'm redirecting. And let's save that. So now I've got an environment file that will tell the system to use this area. Now I have to make sure that I use that file when I start NX. So what I'm going to do is create a shortcut. And I'm going to copy the out-of-the-box shortcut. The easiest way to do that is to pretend you're going to run NX just like I did before. But instead of clicking on this to run, I'm just going to right-click. I'm going to put that in the folder here. And of course, you could put this on your desktop or wherever you want. I'm going to make a copy of that shortcut. Now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to change the properties. And you'll see that there is a start in folder. And I want it to start in this folder here that I've created. So let me go here and copy that text. And I'm going to wipe out the default and replace it with my folder right there. That's what I want. So now I'm going to run NX. Right? I'm going to use the shortcut. I'm double-clicking that shortcut that I just created, and we'll see what it looks like. It looks just like the other one that I had running, right? Remember this is my original NX that we started the day with, and this is one I just ran. The difference here is that if I go in and I look at the log file on this one, and we scroll down, this is the very important line you want to look for. Right here it says where it's using the UGI-env.dat file from users reap demo. So this tells me that it read the correct file. The next thing to look for is, remember these three things that we changed? They all show up here. These variables are now pointing somewhere else, not the out of the box. Now if I scroll down, you'll see, well, gee, all this is pointing to the program files, Siemens. This is all out of the box until we hit the CAM stuff. At that point, you'll see everything is pointing to this resource folder that I copied. So what I've verified is that I'm now running a custom version of NX. So that's nice. So how do we see, maybe you don't believe me. Let's find out if that's really the case. So what I'm going to do here, let me get rid of that. Go back to my demo directory, and let's go change one of the templates. Okay. Now we need to talk a little bit about templates here. In NX, when I create something, I really never invent anything from scratch. I'm always creating something. So if I were to go in here and say, for example, I was going to create an operation. When I see here mill planer and I see floor wall, what's really happening there is it's looking at a part called mill planer, and it finds an operation called floor wall. And that's really what we're looking at here is the part and the operations in the part. And when I say OK, we copy that operation from that template part into my work part. So that's really what templates are all about, is providing a starting point. It's like copy-paste. It's where are you copying it from into your work part. That's what we're establishing. So what I want to do is modify one of the template parts to give you a little taste of what we can do. So here I'm going to go into the resource folder, and if you're new to customization, this is the area where all the files we read at runtime are stored. There's all kinds of things in here. The one we're going to look at right now is the template parts. So we're looking at template parts. I'm looking at my metric template parts, and I'm going to look at mill contour, and I'm just open that part up in my session here. And what you can see here is these are all the operations that you'll see when you go to create an operation for mill contour. This is what you see. So let's make an extra cavity milling operation. I'm going to copy this operation, and then I'm going to paste it. And I'm going to rename it to say my cavity mill. And if we were to look at this, right now it's exactly the same as cavity milling. So let's make some changes to it. First of all, let's customize the dialog. If you're new to dialog customization, don't worry. We'll get into this more in the next session or two. I'm going to go Object Customize. And this is the things I see on the dialog. I want to add a group at the top of the dialog, and I say, say for parts, right, that look like this, and I can make this whatever I want. This is just adding a group. Then inside of that group, let's add a picture, right? I want to make sure the user knows what this looks like. And this is going to be, I'm looking at UGI bitmap path. Remember, that's where I put all my bitmaps, right? Let's add that to the dialog. Let's say OK. Now let's take a look at it. We're getting an error because that bitmap, that picture I want to put in the dialog, doesn't exist there. So that's okay. We'll let's go fix that right now before we get any further. If I go back to where I was under my demo, remember I had that user tools bitmaps folder. Let's put some bitmaps in there. This is the my part bitmap. This is the missing bitmap. I'm going to drag in two other ones because we're going to need those in the next couple minutes. So I'm putting 3 bitmap files in that folder, okay? Now let's go back to NX. And I'm going to edit the cavity mill operation, and what do you know? There's a picture in there, right? So it says this is for parts that look like this. And this is a group. I can open and close it like anything else. While we're here, let's change some defaults just to make this different. I'm going to change it from follow to zigzag, and we'll change the step over to be, say, 15% a tool, just so we see something different. And I'm going to OK this. Okay. The other thing I probably want to do is change the tooltip. You notice when we create an operation, we get that pop-up window. That's all done under Properties. So what I want to change here, and again, I'm going to cheat a little bit because I have the attribute text here. This is the path to the picture. So the picture that I want to see in the pop-up, that's when I hover the icon, is not this one. This is the one, the cavity milling, that I give you out of the box. We're going to put our own in here. Let's change the title of this to, instead of just cavity mill, let's call it, my My special cavity mill, right? Or tech tips. Whatever I want there. And I also have 3 paragraphs of text. If you haven't seen this in 8.5 yet, we've done a lot of work to help your users select the right operation. So this is a great demo so far. Right? So let's do that. Okay, so what I've done is I've modified the properties on this, I've modified the dialog on it, and I have copied in 3 images into this folder. So now let's start up NX again with our shortcut. And let's see how it looks now. So let's, it's just an empty part. We'll go into manufacturing, create an operation, and I'm going to go to mill contour. And you'll see right away there's 2 icons here, right? This is the cavity milling we're used to, and this is the new one that I just added. Now what you notice, the icon itself is different. It's got some colored stripes. You can do whatever you want to do there with those pixels to help your user pick the right icon. Also, you notice in this tooltip now, the picture is different. It's not the one that you see with the regular cavity milling. This is one that I just did. I just did a screen grab, right? I made this operation, did a screen grab, and saved it as a bitmap. And that's the picture we see here. So this can be anything you want. Whatever helps your user decide which is the right operation. And then you see on the right, we've changed the title and the text. So you know that this is really this operation I just customized. So let's go ahead and create one. You see, there's the dialog where I added the big picture up there, and you see down here the cut pattern is different. Now, just as a refresher, let's go back to our out-of-the-box NX and show you that I haven't touched that. So I'm going to run out-of-the-box NX85, start. Go to create the operation, mill contour. You'll notice that there's just the 1 cavity milling, and that's all I get. And that, of course, our vanilla cavity milling. So what I hope to show you is that we've created a safe place. I made some pretty quick changes to a copy of an out-of-the-box operation, and we haven't. And the out-of-the-box install is still available. And this is just the beginning. In the next session or 2, we're going to get into more details on the kind of things I can customize in an operation. I can do pictures. I can do the dialogue. I can do the default values. Whatever it takes to make this as easy as possible for your users. So let's talk. One more thing we need to talk about is planning the customization. It's really easy to get carried away doing customizing, and I really encourage it. I think it's a place you could be creative. It's fun. You can also help everybody else in your company be more productive, which makes you the hero. You can make NX easier to use for everybody, which is good for you and us. Some things you need to think about is when you look at customization, look for the common use cases first. We don't want to look at something that the expert does once a year. We want to look at something that the everyday user does every day. Where are the pain points, the things that are just annoyances? Those are the kind of things we really want to target first when we start planning our customization. You also want to plan ahead for distribution. If you can make a great operation, a great process, don't keep it to yourself. Make it so other people can use it, other people can understand it, and find a way to distribute it. So make sure that everybody can get their hands on it. The last thing is you need to plan ahead for version upgrades. We'll get into that a little later. But when a new release comes out, you can migrate this sandbox here onto the new release and merge your changes in. So that's the conclusion of my presentation. At this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Derek.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Good job. Very informative.